See, what's the name of his show?
Stafford Voice.
Stafford Voice. Okay. I'm going to see if I can't pull it up here on the computer. What is his name?
Daniel, I believe.
Okay.
Hello, America. Today's show topic is the Second Amendment. You know, a good old-fashioned Wild West showdown, if you will. So sit back, buckle up, and hang on because we're just getting started. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, how you doing? I am your host, Daniel Stafford, and you are listening to the Stafford Voice, where we are conservative in a world of liberal. And look, I want to remind you guys there are many ways to listen or watch or whatever you're doing. So just set this channel as a favorite, whatever you have to do so you don't get left behind. Because if for some strange, crazy reason you missed the show, there's no need to panic because I've got you. In the case you aren't already following on social media, go ahead, find me over on Twitter or Gab at Stafford Voice. You can also find me over on Grassfire, Facebook, Instagram, or any other social site of your choosing. Wherever you're at, just search for the Stafford Voice, and, well, you know, I'm probably there. If not, hit me up on one of the other ones and get me over there. Okay, without further ado, like I teased you earlier and all day today, we are having a good old-fashioned Wild West showdown. We're going to talk about the Second Amendment. My first guest of the evening, probably to some of you, does not need any introduction. The illustrious Pat Nicholas. Pat, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well, Daniel. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming on. I really do appreciate it. I know that you are deep into the Second Amendment. It's probably one of your number one issues. So go ahead, give us a brief rundown, kind of a short little bio, if you will, and then let everybody else know where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, the Second Amendment absolutely is my wheelhouse. Started off as a communications manager for the NRA affiliate in Iowa. Got recruited directly by the NRA to be an EVC after that. Moved on to the board of directors for another well-known gun rights group in the capacity of communications director, and am currently and proudly the senior policy advisor for the Second Amendment for the Federalist Party. So I can be found on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @IAGunGal, and on Facebook I am just plain old Pat Nicholas.
Awesome. Okay, so the other guest that we have, kind of what I'm guessing is you guys are arch nemesises, kind of what we discussed earlier. We've got Ken Crow. Ken, how are you tonight?
I'm doing fine, but no, I'm not an arch nemesis of Pat. I just disagree with her on some subjects. But we do agree on more than we disagree on. So, but this topic we do happen to disagree somewhat, as you're going to find out shortly. You can find me on Twitter. I'm at KWR Crow. Website's crowsnestpolitics.org. And I'm a right-wing activist, Tea Party organizer, you know, spokesperson for all that's conservative and good in this world. And, yeah, I just happen to disagree with Pat at times. So,
well, which is
let
okay.
The games begin. Let the war games begin, I guess.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
It's all good. Discussion's good. It's better than shooting, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know.
I mean, talk about the issues, not fight.
Well, I mean, I don't know. We have a large audience that loves guns, so any way we'd be able to get out on the shooting range and be able to fire those things up would be great. I think that both of you would agree with that. That'd be a good place where we could start.
Absolutely.
So, speaking of a place to start, you know, I struggled with this all day. How do I want to approach the Second Amendment topic with two of the bigger proponents for Second Amendment issues, that is. So, I saw this earlier, and obviously the big topic of the day was the Supreme Court was issuing rulings and what they were going to be taking on next. And they actually had two that came up where they had to decide whether they wanted to talk Second Amendment issues or not, and they struck down both of them. They didn't take either one of these cases. One of which was the one that came out of California's Ninth Circuit, where the San Diego sheriff, who had imposed strict limits on issuing permits for concealed weapons, they say that this was a disappointing pass on the chance for the court to make a landmark decision on the right to carry guns outside of homes. So, this was one of those things where you could take it either way. So I'm gonna toss it over to the two of you. First, I want to get Pat's intake, and then Ken, I'll let you rebut from there. So go ahead, Pat. What do you see with this?
Yeah, this is, and it pains me to say this, but it's a huge blow to the Second Amendment. And it's, all throughout the campaign, we were hearing, Supreme Court, Supreme Court, Supreme Court. And the whole time I was saying, it doesn't matter. Look at the history of Supreme Court rulings. This one was decided 7-2, even though we have, a conservative-dominated court now. It sets the Heller decision back a notch, in my opinion. I don't see anywhere in the Second Amendment where it says you have to show just cause to carry a gun. I don't agree with California's May issue and having to, show just cause to exercise self-defense. In that ruling, or in that law, it just saying that, you want to protect your life, you want to carry for self-defense, that's not a good enough reason. If you have a stalker or something like that and can prove that, then you might be able, to get a permit. There were still, this law has been in place for a while, there were still 1,200 gun murders in California per the latest FBI stats. How's that law working out for you? There is no law that's going to legislate the evil out of somebody, so the court's refusal to hear this case was painful, in my opinion.
Criminals are going to criminal. We know that. You can look at
exactly.
You can look at places like Chicago and other places. So Ken, what's your take on this one?
Well, hey, I'm going to agree with Pat on this. Look, here's my thing on the Second Amendment, and this is where Pat and I have fun and disagree a lot. The Second Amendment is the Second Amendment. Now, do I think you should carry a gun into an elementary school to go to your kids' play? Not really, not so much. Do I think you need to carry a gun to church? I don't know. It's debatable. If you can protect it and hide it, nobody knows you have it, fine. But don't be strapping it on and walking in and, saying you're going to worship the Lord with a 44 Colt on your hip, There's prudence. I'm of the opinion there's prudence. Now, where we really get into it and disagree was I say, where do you draw the Second Amendment line? It's like these congressmen on Capitol Hill and senators. I think it's ludicrous that they can't carry a gun. I mean, they have people trying to kill them, for Christ's sakes. They should be able to carry a gun, knowing that it takes 5 minutes for the police to get there to save you. This guy's got 5 minutes. He can peel off a lot of rounds.
Okay,
with his AR-15.
So wait a minute.
But
do you believe the people? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, do you believe the people?
Go ahead, Pat.
Go, Pat.
Your turn. Go. Do you believe the people of D.C. should have the same right as those congressmen? I heard about the legislation that was introduced by Mo Brooks, and I love Mo Brooks. He's a heck of a nice guy. But I thoroughly disagree with this. I find irony in this legislation that he's introduced, where Congress can exempt themselves from D.C.'s gun laws, but nobody else can. These guys swore an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution, but they want to exempt themselves from the 10th Amendment.
Well, I'm of the opinion that D.C. is the one place in the country that we probably should be really stringent on gun laws. I'm serious about that because look, you've got 1 million people there, of which you've got our entire national leadership sitting there that's vulnerable. And you've got to protect these people. And if you've got 1 million people running around with guns, there ain't enough Secret Service agents to protect these guys. Let's be real. I mean, I've walked up to the Capitol and seen John McCain standing out there beside his car. He didn't have any protection. He's just standing there talking on his cell phone. And I've seen the same with Jeff Sessions and all the other guys. Well, this is our national leadership. And if you've got a bunch of crazed wackos running around with 38s in their pocket, going, oh, there's John McCain, I hate that guy, and peels off a round on him, he doesn't have a chance to protect himself. And I think DC's the one place that you have to have some semblance of restrictions. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'd say there's far more rapes that occur in D.C. than there are shootings of congressmen. Do you believe that I should be afforded? Do you think my right to self-defense in D.C. is somehow less than a congressman's?
Well, that's a great question, and it's obviously, I mean, I have to say no. You don't have any more or less rights than he does to protect himself, and he doesn't have any more or less rights than you have. But it's then if that's the case, if you're going to let anybody, Tom, Dick, and Harry, carry a firearm in D.C., then we have to protect our leadership. We have to protect our congressmen and senators. Then they should all have a couple of bodyguards.
So
because
there's 20,000
crazy people, Pat. You just have too many
there's
crazy
crazy
people out there.
Yep. There's
So
also 20,000 municipal, state, and federal gun laws on the books. Let me know which one you'd like to add that'll legislate the evil out of somebody.
So, Ken, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this.
That's a great line.
Why then can we not allow our congressmen and women to, anybody else on Capitol Hill for that matter, to be able to carry their own weapon, to be able to defend themselves? Why do we have to legislate gun laws to restrict anybody else in the D.C. area or surrounding area, for that matter, to help protect our elected officials? Why can't they be able to afford their own protection and carry themselves? Could something like what we saw last week or with Scalise, what's his name? Yeah. Would they have been able to protect themselves if somebody there had a firearm?
Well, it so happens, and thank God there were two there that did have firearms, and it just so happens they got really lucky that Scalise was one of the congressional leaders who happened to have a couple of armed guards with him because of his position. Had they not been there, and had that guy been able to shoot straight, that would have been a total bloodbath. It would have been ugly. Rand Paul would have been killed. There would have been a lot of people killed there. And it would have been really ugly. To answer your question, we all have the legal right, and it's in the Second Amendment to carry a firearm. We all have that right now. And as a matter of fact, Arizona just went ahead and struck down or passed a law or struck down a bunch of laws. You can walk around now. You don't have to have a permit to buy a handgun. You don't have to have anything in Arizona. You can strap it on, go wherever you want to go, unless it's a privately thing that says no guns allowed. But otherwise, you can walk around with a gun in Arizona.
That is federalism in action. Okay, there is a huge marriage between the Second Amendment and the 10th Amendment. The majority of your gun laws are made at the state level. Where we have a problem with this D.C. issue, where Mo Brooks has introduced this legislation in response to the Scalise shooting, either everybody, the problem is with the D.C. gun laws. That's what needs to be changed. We don't need to exempt Congress from D.C. gun laws. D.C. has the right to make their own gun laws all day long. That doesn't necessarily mean I agree with them. But no senator, no congressman should be exempt from D.C. gun laws that any citizen of D.C. is not also exempt from.
Well, then you need to provide them with protection. Because let's say your Supreme Court justices have escorts and protection. You're obviously president, vice president, speaker of the House, Senate Majority Leader, all those guys do too. But you get down to your other 430 congressmen and another 90 senators, and they need it as well. I mean, if you're going to open it up for everybody, then you're going to have to protect these guys. That's
the
just
cool
the
thing
reality.
Is they can afford it.
We can't be getting. Not really. They only make $180,000 a year, and living in up there that don't go that far. So it's a catch-22, Pat, and
it's really not, Ken. There's you already said earlier. Nope. You already said earlier that my right to self-defense is no less than a congressman or a senator's. And I am really cool with changing the gun laws in D.C. They're horribly restrictive. And they do absolutely nothing to reduce gun crime in D.C.
Well, Chicago is...
Like Daniel said earlier. It's like Daniel said earlier. Criminals are going to criminal.
Let's make this really fun. So which guns should you be allowed to carry? You want to carry an M16? You want to carry an handheld anti-aircraft launcher? At what point do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line on what you can carry?
Those regulations are already drawn. No, of course not. Why would we do that? My personal, my everyday carry weapon is an M&P Shield 9mm. It's a semi-automatic 9mm. It's kind of up to the person. You get into these. Everybody throws out the nuclear weapons or that's not BATFE, regulated firearms. That's DOD controlled stuff. So you're comparing apples and oranges.
But wait a minute. If you talk to a purist, a Second Amendment purist, which I have talked to, and you're very close to being, if not already, you ask that question, where do you draw the line? All of them tell me, I've been told this many times, whatever the government has, you should be able to own too. Well, now, wait a minute.
Okay, so...
This means Bill Gates
that's not a position. That's not a position you're ever going to get out of me, Ken, because I know the laws and I know the Constitution. Okay, so don't try and pin somebody else's opinion on
Bill
me.
Gates.
Okay, what laws need to be changed?
Submarine.
No, he couldn't. No, he couldn't. That would be illegal. That would be illegal.
No, it's not.
Let's get back to reality, Ken. Let's get back to reality. No, it's not. It's really not. Let's get back to reality a little bit here.
I love it. Go ahead.
Okay. So, what weapons do I think we should own? Whatever you want that's regulated by the BATFE. I mean, I know you come down on AR-15s a lot, and that surprises me. I'm not sure why. I mean, a 30-06 has a much higher muzzle velocity. It's got roughly 3,300 foot-pounds of energy behind it. An AR-15 has 1,200 foot-pounds of energy behind it and a muzzle velocity of maybe 2,800 feet per second. But nobody wants to ban the 30-06. It looks like Granddaddy's ranch rifle. So, I mean, right. I guess my question to you is, where do you draw the line? Do you want everybody to have a revolver? Pea shooter?
No. I draw.
So where do you draw the line?
I draw the line at fully automatic AR-15s,
Why?
AK-47s, M16.
An AR-15 is not a fully automatic weapon. An AR-15 is a semi-automatic weapon.
Convert them. I understand that.
No, that's a myth.
Have converted them.
That is an absolute myth, and it's illegal to do. It's illegal. It's already illegal.
I know people that own them currently, but at any rate, I know they're breaking the law.
Well, yeah, so now all you're doing is admitting more laws don't work.
Well, yeah, but you ask why I'm against fully automatic weapons, okay? It's because you can rattle off 30, 40, 50 rounds in a matter of seconds, okay? Whereas a police officer, there's no way he can defend himself. I remember a few years ago, a couple of guys took, I don't remember if they were fully automatic or semi-automatic. They had 2 or 3 cops pinned down. They were robbing a bank in Los Angeles, I think, and you probably remember seeing this videotape. I mean, they destroyed their cars, shot through the doors. I don't remember if any of them died or not. I don't remember, but I remember seeing this videotape, and I thought, oh, my God. You know, and that's what was going on. By the way, I want to, Danny, we had a huge fight.
I want to address that. I want to address that.
Sure.
Can I address that? Okay.
You bet.
First of all, those weapons were not obtained legally. Okay. Second of all, there's roughly 148,000 fully automatic weapons available out there. They're on a registry. There is a registry for fully automatic weapons. You're not getting one unless you got a minimum of $20,000. Most of those guns are in trusts. Federal tax. Basically, what you do is sign away your Fourth Amendment rights.
You have to have a special license to have one too, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that.
And so, you know, you tell me these anecdotes about what some criminal does with a gun. All that basically, you know, what you're telling everybody is that you believe the American gun owner is one step away from crazed lunatic about to go berserk. We don't ban things from the people in this country based on a maybe they might do something bad at some nebulous point in the future. Why should I not own an AR-15 because some criminal some evil person shot up, you know, a ball field in Washington, D.C. with one? Well, it actually was an SKS, but you get my point.
You know, you can be a teenage kid and go into a high school with a shotgun and do just as much damage.
Exactly.
I would agree, and it was done in Colorado. You know, look, at what point and how many guns do we allow? Because let's face it, guys, let's be real. Take away all the defense and the legal defense and all those arguments for a minute. We have a lot of innocent people dying in this country today. That is a reality. We have babies, we have young girls, we have old men, and everything in between dying daily at the hands of people with guns. Now, granted, you have to be a pretty evil SOB to want to shoot up a bunch of kids, and there's no guarding that. But what do we do to begin curbing some of this? Because the violence is escalating in this country. The hatred is escalating. The groups are escalating. La Raza against Black Lives Matter, against white supremacists, against everybody. It's getting worse. So how do we curb it?
I agree.
Let's put this in perspective, okay? So there's 120 million gun owners in this country. There are an estimated 350 million guns in private citizens' hands. Per the FBI, per Table 8, total gun murders were 9,100. So that boils down to, I believe it's a percentage of 0.0085% gun murder rate per gun owned in this country. That's pretty good.
You put
Every
that.
death is a tragedy. It is an absolute tragedy.
Here's,
and there's...
Let me interject real quick. Here's where I see a bigger problem, and this opens up a whole different discussion for a whole different time. But we can argue how many guns we should be able to have as a country. We can also have the debate on how many guns that we think should, quote-unquote, legally be held by any law-abiding United States citizen, which I don't think there should be any limit to how many guns you can have. It's your right, your prerogative. Now, we can put the death statistics against anything else in this country, like heart and mind issues, such as Planned Parenthood, these are quote-unquote doctors who have it's their job to go in and rip out the fetus of a child. And we are more concerned about putting more gun laws on the books. I'm more concerned, honestly, about how we can shut down an organization that lawlessly goes in and sucks a fetus out of a woman and denies two rights, the right to life and the right of what a woman's purpose is on this planet, to give birth to another child and bring forth God's creation. That's a bigger issue. It's less of an issue.
And the two are inexplicable. The two are tied, too. We talk about the Constitution a lot, but we got the Declaration of Independence that unequivocally states, that the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are unalienable rights endowed to us by our Creator. We just touched on the right to life. It is so tied to the Second Amendment. Life and liberty.
You can't...
They're God-given rights.
They are, and how are you supposed to be able to defend your God-given inalienable right to life without being able to defend yourself? And this is what I wanted to get to just a second ago, was if that's our inalienable right to protect ourselves, then the Second Amendment was not there to be able to curtail anybody else. The Second Amendment is there to give us the power to go out and protect ourselves, protect our families, protect our communities, protect our surrounding areas from a tyrannical government. That's the thing that we have to remember. Why would we want to add more gun laws on the books to make it harder for a law-abiding citizen who's not out making mistakes, who just wants to go about their life and protect their loved ones and then protect themselves? Why do we need more gun rights or gun laws? Why?
Right. We don't. We need to enforce the ones that are currently on the books.
Like immigration.
Well, and some of those, I'm going to tell you the truth, some of those probably need to be removed. I'm not, so everybody understands, I am a proponent of the Second Amendment. I am a defender of the Second Amendment, as I am all the other amendments and the Bill of Rights. My only thing is, at what point do you put some practical restraint out there to keep crazy people from obtaining machine guns? That's my big thing.
My answer to that.
At what point should we?
Your right to life. Go ahead.
My answer to that,
At what
Ken,
point should we curtail your Eighth Amendment rights?
My answer to you, Ken, it starts at home.
Yeah.
Don't allow your kids to go out onto the street to get taught. You have to teach them at home. You have to teach them in church. You have to teach them in school. Don't allow them to go out there on the street and get educated that way. That's how we have so many criminals today, because they weren't taught at home. That's what we really need to do.
Well, if you want to back up one step further from that, we need to figure out a way in this country to put the family back together.
True.
You have too many children being raised in single mother homes, and mommy's got 4 sons. Daddy abandoned them, don't pay child support, can't find him. And she's sitting there going, what do I do? And she's on welfare and drawing food stamps. And the kids end up finding a family in something called the Bloods or Crips or MS-13 or something like that. And that's where it goes bad. But back to your abortion thing for a minute. The practical political reality is it's probably never going to be changed. And the reason is this. The left has spent 40 to 50 years now since Roe v. Wade educating America that a woman's got a right to choose. I do think that abortion should be legal, but it needs to be heavily, heavily restricted. I'll give you an example. My wife's from New Zealand. In New Zealand, if you want an abortion, you can get one, but here's what you have to do. You have to go get approval from 2 or 3 counselors. You have to go to 3 or 4 counseling sessions as a young woman. You go for like 2 a week for 2 weeks or something like that. Then you have to go before a magistrate and get approval showing that you've been. And all this has to transpire before the baby's got a heartbeat. Once that baby's got a heartbeat, rules of the game change. And after, I believe it's 12 weeks, you're not getting an abortion anymore. As simple as that. Unless a doctor stands up, signs off, and says, if she tries to have this baby, she's going to die doing it. Then you may be able to get it. But otherwise, so while it's legal in New Zealand, there's not many of them performed. I mean, that's just a reality. You've got to, and if it is done, it's done like at the 4-week mark when there's not really much there. So that's where we need to get to. But the problem in this country is getting the Supreme Court to overturn a prior Supreme Court's ruling. It's only happened 3 times in American history in our 240 years or whatever. It's only happened 3 times that the Supreme Court's, 3 or 4 times the Supreme Court's overruled another one. Then you're going to have to get, right now, I believe it's 65% of America believes, 65 or 70% believes that a woman has a right to choose. How are you going to convert? Because if you went in and did this right now, you're going to have uprisings in Washington, D.C. that you've never seen before. You're going to have millions of people in that town carrying pitchforks and torches. And they're not going to be there for a weenie roast. They're going to be there to take care of business. How are you going to get them to convert over? Well, it's going to take billions upon billions of dollars worth of marketing advertising to convert and change the Americans' process of thought on this subject. And I just don't see it happening. I really don't, as tragic as that is. It is in Trump's new budget. I'll shut up on this subject by saying this on this subject. But in his budget that he's proposing, that Congress is supposed to take up and the Senate's supposed to take up here in the coming months for next year, I believe it is in there to cut the funding to Planned Parenthood. So what we need to do is get behind Trump and get behind his budget.
Okay.
And that'll curb a lot of it.
Speaking of getting behind Trump, and I think...
Yes.
Oh, boy. I think this is kind of where we wanted to take things.
Go for it.
Supporting Trump, man. Yeah. I support him on some things. I disagree with him on some other ones. But whatever. But another thing that the Supreme Court, this one came out today. So we'll kind of transition over into the Trump he said, she said type thing, where he was basically while he was campaigning, he had talked about how the court should uphold the prohibition on gun ownership for any crime that's classified as a felony in federal law, arguing that reviewing individuals on a case-by-case basis is a threat to public safety. Now, this comes by way of the Supreme Court, where they declined the opportunity to hear a case about a Second Amendment issue for two Pennsylvania men who had been convicted of nonviolent misdemeanor crimes but treated as felons under the federal gun ban. We had Julio Suarez and Daniel Binderup, both convicted of nonviolent misdemeanors, but their punishments carried maximum possible sentences of more than 2 years. Neither man served jail time. Gun rights were rescinded because the maximum possible sentences for their crimes were within the definition of a felony in the federal gun ban. The Third Circuit U.S. Court of Appeals in 2016 ruled to restore the gun rights of the two men, maintaining that their misdemeanors were not sufficient to rescind their right to, quote-unquote, keep and bear arms under the Second Amendment. Where do we stand with this?
States' rights usurp everything, in my opinion, unless I'm not a constitutional scholar. But if I'm not mistaken, states' rights carry a heavier burden than federal rights do. Am I mistaken about that, Pat? Aren't
yeah, I think you got you got that backwards. The states, the beautiful thing about the states, and the beautiful thing about the Constitution is the 10th Amendment, and the powers that the states have to create their own laws. However, those laws cannot violate the U.S. Constitution. My opinion on the cases with these two individuals is this is a classic example of federal government overreach. When this law was put into place, I had a problem with it. The Second Amendment is 27 words long, and the federal government has one directive in it, and that's to not infringe. The rest of the laws are made at the state level. It was already ruled by a lower court that these two men should have their rights reinstated. Again, that we have another case of it doesn't matter what the balance of the court is. And everybody was saying we need to elect Trump because of the balance of the court. Didn't pan out in this case. These two men are the victims of a law that should have never been put into place in the first place, in my opinion.
Well, you said what I just very uneloquently said. I was trying to say what you said. It just came out wrong. I think it should go back to the state, and the state said, hey, look, these guys should have the right to own guns, and as long as they didn't commit a felony, then they should have the right, and their state justice system said they did not commit a felony. They should have a right to own firearms. I disagree with the ruling vehemently.
Congratulations, you're a Federalist.
Okay. I don't know what I am. I'm just a flag-waving American.
So where else do we
Republican?
What else has Trump said or done in the past that we've had disagreements on?
Oh, the big explosion that Ken and I got into was over the no-fly list.
With relation to the Second Amendment, correct?
Yep. Yeah. You want to take that ball and run with it, Ken, or you want me to?
Go ahead, Ken. Let's let Ken take this one.
Well, okay. My argument on the no-fly list was this, and yes, I realize there's people on the no-fly list that probably shouldn't be on the no-fly list. But look, when you have the government doing background checks on Abdul from Afghanistan, who's here on a permit for a while or a 10-year thing, and he's on the no-fly list. And they've got him, well, now he's an American citizen. Let me back up and say Abdul's become an American citizen. But Abdul's he went back to Syria for a while. Abdul came back. Abdul's done several things Abdul really shouldn't have done. And the government said, wait a minute, Abdul may be a danger here. So they put him on the no-fly list. Now Abdul wants to go out and start buying AR-15s, and he can't. I think that's a damn good thing because we don't know what Abdul's intentions are. And I guarantee you it's not to deer hunt. And that, that's where I got into it with Pat. She said, well, no, you can't. There's people on the no-fly list that shouldn't be on. I agree there's people on it that shouldn't be on it. But there's also a whole lot on there that should be on there. And if you're on a no-fly list and you're so troublesome that the government says, pal, we don't even trust you to get on an airplane, then I don't think you should own a gun. That's my argument.
So should he not be able to go to Walmart and buy a pressure cooker either? Should there be a federal list to put you on a no pressure cooker list? I'm only asking. I mean, I'm just saying.
I know where you're going with that, but look, I don't even know how to operate a pressure cooker.
Well, I mean, but again, I'm just kind of I'm going along with what you.
Should Abdul not get a driver's license? Should he not be able to rent a Ryder truck? I get all that. You've got bad people in this world.
Exactly.
You play the numbers game. And when you've got 100,000 people on the no-fly list or 500,000, whatever's on there, I know there's a few on there that shouldn't be on there, but you got to play the numbers game and say, look, guys, this is more than likely what they're going to do. It could have been that the idiot, the crazed lunatic that went into the factory in Oklahoma with a machete and decapitated that lady while yelling Allahu Akbar, he may have been on the no-fly list and tried to buy a gun, and thank God he was only able to kill one person instead of 42. Who knows? I don't know. But you've got to do what you can do.
So you're saying that there's a bigger issue other than guns?
Well, obviously.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can storm a subway system with an axe.
Well, we're literally in the middle of a religious war right now.
True.
We literally are.
True. I mean, it's beyond our realm of how to fight it. So.
Well, I know how I would fight it, and I know how Trump wants to fight it, but unfortunately, you have some very liberal folks out there that think that's the wrong thing to do. But
it's catchy to
really want to get.
It's catchy to put it on a T-shirt and say "bomb the shit out of somebody," but it's also something else when you admit that there are forces out there. Spiritually speaking, there's forces out there that are beyond our control. Things are going to happen. If you've read the good book, you know how it ends. I know which side I'm on.
Well, it ends with a really nice guy riding out of the clouds on a big white horse. But yeah, look, let me ask you, Craig. I wrote an article one day, and I posed this hypothetical. And we'll see what Pat's got to say about this here in a second. But I pose this hypothetical. It's 2 weeks before Christmas. 4 guys walk into the Mall of America after having parked 2 cars in the parking lot. They walk into the Mall of America wearing long trench coats and hoods because it's snowing and it's cold, so nobody thinks any different. And when they get inside, they set the 2 cars off in the parking lot and they blow up. Immediately, all the security in the mall goes running to the parking lot. And when they go running to the parking lot, these 4 guys fan out around the mall and just start randomly killing people with automatic weapons or semi-automatic weapons. And it's a total bloodbath. And then they blow themselves up, thusly blowing part of the mall up. And in the end, you've got about 2,500 dead people. And this all transpires within 10 minutes. How do you stop that?
With law-abiding citizens.
I'm trying to figure out how we got off the no-fly list.
With law-abiding citizens carrying. That's how you put an end to it. With a law-abiding citizen who is trained, who has practiced, who has put the time behind the trigger, who has never had an issue with it before, but when the time comes, they answer that call, and they draw. That's it. That's how you do it.
Okay, what's what's your laws in Minnesota regarding guns? I'm not familiar with Minnesota gun laws. Pat may know them. I don't know them.
I don't know.
Minnesota.
I'm in Kansas. I can open carry.
Or you can open carry in Minnesota?
No, I'm in Kansas. I can open carry in Kansas.
Well, you do anything in Kansas. We know that.
I can open carry in Missouri.
You can open carry in Missouri.
Can I? Yep. Can I jump back to the no-fly list thing?
Sure.
I didn't really get to. Okay.
You bet.
All right. We agree that there's no proof of wrongdoing to be put on that list, right, Ken? It's based 100% on suspicion.
Not necessarily, because I do not know the criteria for it. So
the criteria is it is based merely on suspicion. Your social media posts can land you on the no-fly list. A mistaken identity can land you on the no-fly list. An 8-year-old Boy Scout by the name of Mikey Hicks was on the no-fly list. That list was ruled unconstitutional by a federal judge in 2014.
Okay.
And that's because they don't have to tell you that you're on it, nor do they have to give you any meaningful way to get off of it. There is zero due process.
Okay, then why are we discussing a no-fly list that's ruled unconstitutional?
It was ruled unconstitutional by a federal judge. It is still in place. It's never been heard by the Supreme Court.
They're still using it.
Yes, they are.
Okay.
We don't ban rights from people. Wait, let me finish. Okay, let me finish my thought here. If we know Abdul is a criminal, if we know he's a terrorist, let's charge him with a crime. Let's give him his day in court. And if he's found guilty, let's incarcerate him. And to target the Second Amendment on this, you're not calling to violate his 1A rights. You're not saying, hey, he can't go to church. You're not saying, that he can't get an attorney, his Sixth Amendment rights. You're not saying that we can treat him, to cruel and unusual punishment, his Eighth Amendment rights. Why are we treating the Second Amendment differently than the rest of the Bill of Rights when it comes to the no-fly list?
Well, probably because the Second Amendment involves firearms which kill people. The other amendments don't, but that would be my guess. But look, if the no-fly list doesn't actually have you committing a crime or have committed crimes, or you're currently being investigated by the NSA and they're listening to your phone calls and you're planning to hijack planes and blow things up, then I agree you should not be on the no-fly list. I mean, you have to have done something to deserve to be there. And if you have done something, then you're right. You under our Constitution, you should have your day in court, which means you should be charged and have your day in court to get off the list. I firmly agree with you on that subject, Pat, that just arbitrarily put somebody on there because they make a random Facebook post that the government doesn't like is a bunch of horse crap. That's ludicrous. That's absolutely ludicrous.
Or you could be a high school kid who makes a clock with little wires hanging out of it. But anyway, that could or could not land you on the no-fly list, which should have. But we let him go over and then come back and then sue the shit out of somebody. But I tell you what.
I quit flying, but I was told that I was on the list. But I did quit flying, so I haven't challenged it to find out. But I was told I was.
Well, the government doesn't have to tell you that you're on it, so.
They don't like me because I'm a loudmouth and I'm right wing. Janet Napolitano didn't like me, and I'm a veteran and I'm a Christian. And I wave a Tea Party flag, so she didn't like me. Well, true story. I'm not kidding.
I tell you what, can I get you guys to hang on for just a minute and pause this real quick, and then because I'm going to wrap the show up, at least the podcast portion of it. But I'd really like to carry on some of the conversation afterwards during our after the show, if you don't mind. and maybe we can get some of the people that are over in the chat rooms, or some of the things that maybe you guys have seen on Twitter or social media or anything like that. Maybe they've got questions that we can ask.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
Okay. Sure. Okay, guys, if you're in the chat rooms over on the YouTube, or you're on Twitter or Facebook or wherever you're listening, go ahead and throw some questions at us while I go ahead and wrap things up, and then we'll try and answer some of those things, or we'll try and cover some of the comments that you guys have left. So with that, that's all the time we have for this week, and God willing, the Stafford Voice will be back next week. You can follow me over on Twitter at Stafford Voice, and you can find me on Gab at Stafford Voice as well. Or you can look me up on Facebook, Instagram, a myriad of other social media sites by looking for the Stafford Voice. Also, you can email your questions, comments, or concerns to thestaffordvoice@gmail.com. Again, that's thestaffordvoice@gmail.com. I want to thank you so much for your time, and until next week, thanks, and God bless. Okay, we still there?
Yep.
Okay, sweet. Okay, so now we can kind of take some of the filters and stuff off. I normally don't try and filter too much during the show, but since we do stream it live, and there's a possibility that some other affiliates that we are linked with can anytime they want be able to drop it on some terrestrial stations. We do try and keep it clean, so I appreciate that. Anyway, let's see, something that we chatted on earlier here. This is on the YouTube side of chat. Curious to know their opinions about certain guns and bullets that can go through the wall. I think this was a question that they were talking about it earlier, about where you have a firearm, and you do have heavy caliber weapons that we do have the ability as citizens to have and hold in our homes, and to be able to go to a practice range and shoot them. But in the case that there was to be an accident, which mine is laying over there on my dresser right now, and it has never actually grew legs, got up and walked out and done any damage. But bullets that go through walls, stuff like that. I think that's kind of where he's wanting to go with this. He wants to know, about an issue like that.
Well, a shotgun shell will go through a wall.
True.
So I guess, I'm wondering, I want to address the question accurately. So.
Okay, so I'll ask it. Refill, go ahead and kind of rephrase your question a little bit, if you don't mind. Ken, go ahead.
Well, I think I know what he's driving at. Look, yeah, there's some walls that just about anything will go through. Brick walls, you're limited as to what can go through it. 50 calibers can, things like that. No, there's two things that I am bitterly opposed to. Military style weapons like 50 calibers should not be available to the general public as a whole. I'm also not in favor of being able to go to Walmart and buying armor-piercing 30-30 shells either, or 22s or whatever. I think a cop should have the ability to put on a vest and know that 99% of the time he's protected. And with that vest, and I apologize, I'm getting over pneumonia.
No, but you're fine.
Anyway, that's my opinion. We don't need to have 50 cals available to every Tom, Dick, and Harry on the street. Shouldn't be able to walk in and buy one, even if they do have the 20 grand. I don't believe
you can't
that.
Walk in and buy one. You can't walk in and buy one. You're not going to be able to walk into any gun. Well, okay, so let's address those two things. They're not available to every Tom, Dick, and Harry. There is a very stringent process
that's a good
you have
thing.
to go through to get
That's
one.
a good thing.
Exactly. And as far as the armor that you were talking about, it's got that whole armor piercing rounds thing that was going around. You know, the rounds that they were trying to ban were extremely cheap target rounds that a lot of us, including myself, used. You know, let's take a 223 that's got a green tip, you know, and let's ban it, and then let's put you, you know, 100 yards down range in a Kevlar vest, you know, and one that doesn't and I'll put one that doesn't have a green tip in my AR and fire away. Let's see if it pierces the armor.
Hey, Pat, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What round did they struggle to find in Reagan when he was shot?
Oh, God. I don't know. You got me on that one.
I think it was a 22, and they
only
9 happened upon...
Wasn't it?
It was a very small caliber, but I think that kind of goes with the point of this whole thing is it really doesn't matter the size. It matters in how you use it. I mean, a 22 can do...
It's illegal to kill somebody with a 50 caliber. Yeah.
Right. You know, unless you're 2.2 miles away and you're firing a Canadian sniper rifle. So,
yeah.
Kudos to that guy. Holy crap, man! That was a hell of a shot. But again, you know, it doesn't matter. I mean, you can kill somebody with a spoon. I can kill somebody with a pen, and I carry one with me everywhere I go. It's an aluminum barreled pen, and I can use it's multiple uses. But again, it goes with your training, and as long as you're properly trained, I don't think it really matters what size caliber you want to carry. You could carry a 22, a 9, a 40, a 45, a 357 revolver for all that matter. It doesn't matter.
Well, it's like I said earlier, the 30-06 has a higher muzzle velocity, you know, and more kinetic energy than the AR-15. Yet everybody wants to ban the AR-15, and it's because of the way it looks. You know,
guys,
it looks scary.
Here's the thing. Well, it is scary. It is a great gun. Look, all guns are scary if not in the right hands and not being used properly. But here's the thing: you're looking at the masses. You can isolate and pick out an example for anything. Anything. You know, you can make an argument that we really didn't land on the moon. There's you can make an argument for anything you want to make an argument for. You have to look at the overall big picture, look at the numbers. Who typically does get into a confrontation with a cop? Well, it's usually somebody trying to evade arrest that they know that when they're arrested, they're going away for a very long time. That's who usually, and it's usually somewhere back in time or that particular day revolving around drugs. There's either drugs in the car he doesn't want the cop to find, or he broke probation on a drug charge, and if he gets arrested, he's going away for 7 years, and he's desperate. That's usually who. So what kind of guns do they typically carry? Well, they usually carry 357s. They usually carry 9mm. They usually carry something of that nature. So how do we protect our police officers when they're standing 20 feet away from this guy or 15 feet away, and they're saying, step out of the car now, put your hands on your head, and the guy says no, and he reaches for the glove box, whips out a gun, and starts shooting at the cop? How do we keep that cop alive and give him the best chance to survive?
I guess my question is, why isn't that guy already in jail?
Well, he just got pulled over. He's fixing to go. He's out on probation.
But you said he was like gun crimes and, out on probation.
You don't watch Cops, do you?
No, I'm not big on TV.
Every episode they show some clown that's broken probation, or he's been paroled or something, and he's done something illegal, and he's being arrested for it. And my son's graduating next Friday, as a matter of fact, in the Tennessee Highway Patrol Academy. And I asked him, I said, how real is this show? And he said, it's very real. He said, sometimes they have to ride around with the cop for 3 or 4 days before they get enough footage on a scene that's quality enough to go on the program. But he said every one of those are real scenes. And these guys, I mean, they risk their lives pulling a guy over for a bad taillight that they don't know is broken parole. He's done something illegal. He's got drugs in the car, and they don't know until they walk up and they smell marijuana, and they know they can search the car, but this guy didn't want the car to be searched. And
I honestly,
now you've got a problem.
Right. Okay, so if this guy's on probation, the firearm that he's in possession of is illegal to begin with.
Right. But
how does restricting wait. How does restricting the rights of the law-abiding stop him from obtaining an illegal weapon?
Well, he's got the illegal weapon. He got it. However he got it. He bought it from his buddy Bubba, who's a drug dealer down the street. Who knows? But now what kind of ammunition can he buy for it? And my argument is I don't think that, for lack of better words, cop-killing ammunition should be available to the general public.
I just want to know what you're referring to as cop-killing ammunition. I can kill a cop with a 22.
Whatever it is that, I understand, you shoot him in the neck, in the carotid, he's probably going to die. I get that. But I'm talking about your general schmuck that's not a great at target shooter as you are, who just aims for the body. We want him to hit the vest, and we don't want the bullet to be able to go through the vest. That's the bottom line. So how do you prevent that from happening? Because that's what happens.
We're talking extremely close. We're talking extremely close range here, right?
Well, I don't know. Guy's standing 5, 6 feet away from the door, and he's got his hand on his gun. He's saying, "Please step out of the car." But this guy's holding a pistol between his legs. The cop doesn't know about it, and all of a sudden, bang! He's shot in the chest with this thing.
Yeah, at 5 or 6 feet, just about any round's going to do that.
No, Kevlar vest, a good one, a relatively new one, will stop a 38 from about 6, 8 feet away.
So are you suggesting all we should have is 38?
No. I'm saying that anything, that because there's certain design shells that are designed to penetrate.
Are you talking about defensive rounds? Are you talking about defensive rounds?
I'm not an expert.
Are you talking about
I'm being honest with you.
Okay, there's some rounds that have a green tip that have already been banned. Okay, they're you can't get. But then you've got your full metal jacket. You've got your defensive rounds, and the defensive rounds are they're like indented, for lack of a better word. If I shoot you with
hollow points, because I've got hollow points.
Okay.
That's what
if I shoot you with a full metal, if I shoot you with a 9mm full metal jacket from 5 feet, it's going to hurt you just as bad as that hollow point from 5 feet.
Okay, can the hollow point go through the Kevlar, though?
No.
From 5 feet, I mean, we're talking extremely close range here.
Yeah. No, they'd be farther apart than that. They'd be, 'cause he's usually standing in the middle of the street and the car's pulled over,
Okay,
he doesn't get that close.
We do have a question. It's kind of two-part, but I'm trying to put it into one question. They want to know how you feel about constitutional carry versus permit carry / national reciprocity.
Okay. We just passed constitutional carry in the state of Missouri, permitless carry. And again, it's a beauty of federalism in action. Jay Nixon, the former Missouri governor, vetoed it. And
Yeah, he wasn't
the
liked too well for
Missouri.
that one.
I never did like that guy.
And the Missouri
I never did
legislature
like him.
overrode that veto. It's I just want to clear up for your listeners out there. There is a difference between constitutional carry and permitless carry. Constitutional carry implies that you can carry anytime, anywhere, you want. Permitless carry, like what we have in the state of Missouri now, there still are places off limits, federal buildings, things like that. Permitless carry just means you don't need a permit to carry, in the places that you could normally carry. I'm all for permitless carry. I think a permit is a tax, personally. You're getting the background check when you purchase a firearm from a dealer to begin with. You shouldn't have to pay to exercise a right. But again, it's a state level decision, and state level laws are a lot easier to overturn than federal level laws. As far as national reciprocity goes, I struggled with that one for a long, long time. I'm a firm believer in state rights, and I believe the states should be able to pick, reciprocity. But then along came the gay marriage ruling, and that changed my mind 100%, because when the Supreme Court reinterpreted the 14th Amendment to essentially mean that no state could deny a license issued in any other state, it's my opinion that flung the door wide open for forcing California to recognize the firearm permit of somebody from Texas.
Ken, what do you got?
Okay, if you ask me, I agree wholeheartedly. This is the United States of America, and what's legal in one state regarding the Second Amendment, in my opinion, should be legal in the next state. I think, like Pat, hey, if you're legal and you're a U.S. citizen and you're a Texas resident, you want to go on vacation to California, and you're used to carrying your 9mm, then by God, you should be able to carry your 9mm with you. That's my opinion. I do think, however, with that said, regarding the first part of the question, I do think that there are certain buildings in this country that you should not be able to carry in. No firearms should be allowed inside except law enforcement. And one of those is federal buildings, because there's usually federal courthouses involved. Now, let me explain why I say that. And any courthouse, for that matter, shouldn't have firearms involved. You're always going to have a case where somebody's been charged with something, let's say rape. Let's say Ben over here got charged with raping this 15-year-old girl. He's on trial. Ben's found not guilty. There's just not enough evidence there. Ben's found not guilty. But guess what? Ben's dad, or Michelle's daddy, disagrees. He thinks Ben's guilty. He stands up and says bullshit and blows Ben away. Pardon my French there, and I apologize for that. But that happens quite often, believe it or not, in this country. Stuff like that happens. And it would happen a lot more if courthouses had the sign up, bring your firearms with you when you come to jury duty. It would happen a lot more often. So I think that not having firearms in courthouses is an outstanding idea. In federal buildings, there's no need for them, okay? You have too much security there as it is. There's no need for it. And that's my thoughts on the matter.
Okay, well, I think I don't know if we're boring them to death or if they're still trying to come up with questions, but I think we should probably just end it here. I do want to leave you an open invitation anytime the two of you or want to come on the show and talk about this some more, or individually if you guys ever want to come on and talk about an issue that you see, whether it's Second Amendment related or anything else. You guys are more than welcome to come on anytime.
Outstanding. Well, thank you very much for having us on.
I really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Daniel. It's been an honor. It's been an honor and a privilege, and thank you very much. And I I'll tell you a topic that needs to be discussed is this extreme hate going on in this country, because we've got a problem, and it's descending very rapidly, and it's not good at all. And
well,
I see dark days ahead if we don't get our arms around it.
I wish I could show I wish I could show all of my notes on my dry erase board that are right behind me, but it's on my short list to talk about. I'm still just trying to figure out and connect a bunch of dots that go along with other things that I've had on my mind, because I posed a question to some really close friends in my Slack group, and I asked 4 different questions, and somebody in my Slack group recommended a book to me, and it really opened my eyes, and I'm starting to connect dots between all 4 questions. It was rather interesting, and it's really gotten me diving into some intense topics. So I would invite either one of you guys to come back and stay tuned, see what we have coming up. But yeah, anytime you guys are you guys want to come on, you guys got an issue, or you guys just need to vent, I would appreciate it if you just reach out to me, and I'll have you on anytime. This was a good discussion.
Fantastic. Yeah,
Thank you,
I enjoyed it.
It was a lot of fun.
Enjoyed it, Pat. Ken
yeah,
Pat,
back at you, Ken.
2. No blood this time.
Oh, you guys were such a fun group to talk to. I really do appreciate it. So to everybody else out there,
very much.
To everybody else out there in the chat rooms, we're gonna go ahead and shut things off here, and I'm gonna take a second or two to say bye to Pat and Ken. But you guys are awesome. You guys are more than friends. You guys are family. I will see and talk to you guys next week. Thanks, and God bless.